Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Hedlund.
Greetings. Clearly I'm not Jim Melody, but I am your guest, citizen, advocate, inquisitor. My name is Chief Rick Grimes. So
Welcome.
welcome. Thank you very much, Mayor.
We thought you'd be a good fill-in, given your police investigative skills. I don't know if you were ever in the detective unit.
I was not.
So you might have a little handicap here, but you still have some general policing knowledge.
A little bit.
You've interrogated people in the past, right? You know, traffic stops, things like that. So,
Interrogate's kind of a harsh word. I don't know. Ask questions, yeah.
so you know, consider this like a traffic stop. If I look like I'm dodging,
Okay.
it's your job to advocate for the viewers and squeeze direct, honest answers out of me.
Okay. It's a deal.
All right. And by the way, just, you know, it's kind of like a send-off too. You're going to be leaving us. By the time this actually gets up on the air, you might actually be gone, not forgotten, but gone from active duty. And how many years?
In Weymouth, I'm in my 38th.
30. And it's been
42 altogether.
tremendous service, I know, appreciated for those that have interacted with you. And I have to say that during my tenure, one of the best run departments that I have the pleasure of overseeing and working with.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Appreciate that. All right. So you ready?
We're ready.
All right. So in front of me, I have a.
Oh, we saved this one for you. This came up in our last taping, and we thought it was more appropriate for you to ask this one. This is good.
I figured this one had my name on it. Overnight street parking. Greetings, Mayor. Why does the town not enforce the ban on overnight street parking? After early December storm, while I was out doing errands, I counted 15 cars in my surrounding neighborhood that clearly parked on the street or sidewalk during the storm and were in clear violation of the ban. Why have a rule that the police do not enforce and people shrug off? Please provide specific details on how often the police have issued citations for ignoring the ban. The DPW has a tough enough job to clear the streets. Regards, Mr. X.
Mr. X. So did you deal with informants back in your day too? They call themselves Mr. X?
Not directly, but some people that chose not to leave their name, which is fine.
So we thought literally it was going to be read in the last show, and we thought that you're probably better qualified to answer that than me. So this is a baptism of fire for you. I apologize for that, but have at it. I'm kicking this one back at you.
Well, I was just going to say, you just said it was my job to elicit the response out of you, so I could throw this right back at you, but I'll take you off the hook for a little bit, and then we can probably exchange.
It's a tough issue. I know we deal with it all the time in this office. You know, we try to be as accommodating as we can, and other times we know that we have to enforce it when there's a public safety issue, but we have some neighborhoods that are very compact. We have people who rely on street parking, and I know that we try to make municipal areas available. I know when we've had emergencies in North Weymouth, for instance, we encourage people to park at the Wessagusset's back lot and at Lane Beach lot. We try to, you know, help out that way, but I guess it kind of goes to the heart of what's the police policy.
Well, it is a little bit of a contradiction for the police, but the reality of it is as the town grew and that families grew and people's routines and everything, people became more reliant on multiple cars in a family. A lot of the houses, and especially this area, comes up. I think the people in North Weymouth, and Mr. X could very well be a North Weymouth resident, and we feel for them, but those neighborhoods were designed with either no driveway or possibly be able to get one car in off the street and safely. So now you have 2 cars in the family, and then the young people that are still living in the house have a car as well. So sometimes you get 3 and 4 family cars in one residence. So not that that should be our problem, but it's the reality of the problem. So most of the time throughout the year, that's okay. It gets by. What we rely on a lot of times is the neighborhoods to cooperate with one another. Where we see a problem, sometimes is when somebody moves out of the neighborhood and a new resident comes into a new home and doesn't quite grasp the routine. And so it's something that we hope people can work with. For us to go down and tag cars for not properly parking or parking all night, parking on the street, and the people have nowhere to put their vehicles, it's kind of a hardship for them as well. And we're not out there to harm people, but what we do try to suggest is that they make every available effort to get a car off the street, and especially where it becomes most prominent is during storms.
Right.
And the plows have got to get through. That's the time of year that we will enforce. That's the time of year that if the plow drivers tell us they can't get through, we will make an effort to find an owner. If we can't, we will tow a vehicle.
Right.
We have to maintain the roads that get clear passageway. So it's kind of a balance. And Mr. X does mention a December storm and 15 cars, and that's where people get a little bit irate or discouraged, because now they have to live with the snowbanks, the poorly plowed street. If it freezes the next day, it's a problem. So it's,
And we get complaints on that.
yeah, of course. So
It's interesting you talk about the growth of car ownership. I was very surprised when I was in the legislature to learn a statistic over in Hingham that there are more registered vehicles than licensed drivers in the town of Hingham. So to your point about, people have many more cars in a household now. It's probably, I don't know if we exceed the number of registered licensed drivers, but certainly a lot more cars than when these houses, many of the neighborhoods in Weymouth were designed.
And that's the problem. If we get people, we've encouraged them to park up on their front lawns and get off the road, especially during impending storms. And
So I hope Mr. X does not take that response by the chief as a shrug, as
No,
they
not
shrug
at
it
all.
off. But it is a tough problem. It's a no-win situation, really, for you and for me.
yeah, it is. And we just try to encourage people to do everything they can to work together on these issues.
All right. And if Mr. X wants a follow-up to that, you'll be gone. You won't have to deal with it.
That's the beauty of this conversation. But the next one is sidewalks and helmets.
I see a pattern developing. Now, this one wasn't planned. This one just happened to be in the pile,
Okay.
from what I understand.
So we have two questions. Driving
Unless Mary rejiggered the pile.
I did.
Driving around town, we see a lot of cars parked on the sidewalks. I thought that was against the law. Why don't these people get tickets?
I could just go home now.
They do get tickets. The times that they may not, they could be there for just a short period of time, and the car could be moved before a police vehicle drives by. We do encourage our officers to tag cars that are on the sidewalk, creating a hardship where people pull out and have to, or people walking have to, especially folks with handicap for certain, but with carriages and whatnot, we don't want them going out into the road. So we do get beat up on this from time to time because we just can't get down every street. Sometimes we get calls on reoccurring offenders that park on sidewalks, and we do try to reach out to them and advise them and educate them, and hopefully they find another place to park. But and again, it kind of filters back to the previous question with the on-street. A lot of folks figure they'll get off the street, right, and that the sidewalk and a portion of the front lawn is fair game, and they're making a better effort to get off the road, but yet now they've compromised the sidewalk. So it's kind of a little bit of a catch-22, but we do ticket sidewalk offenders.
I should be reading the questions, and then you can just answer them. I mean, we're getting role reversal here.
Yeah.
But I see he's got a good question, two-part.
Okay, so this one could be yours. I see bikes. So we also see young kids riding bikes, meaning bicycles, without helmets. Right. Is this allowed?
So 90% of bicycle accidents are head injury, and we've had significant problems. And I know the legislature back in the 90s passed a law making a mandatory helmet for bicycle riders under 16. I don't know where and you could tell me this, you go to your police chief association meetings. I mean, is there any community that goes around and tickets kids on bicycles for not wearing a helmet?
Not so much. I think what you've seen is we try to encourage people that should be wearing helmets to wear them, and sometimes incentivize it.
I've seen the ice cream thing.
Ice cream tickets.
Have you guys done that?
Yes, we did. Bob Barry back in the day in the safety offices.
Explain to folks what that is.
If the officers come across a child wearing a helmet, they acknowledge that that's good behavior. So we want to reward that good behavior, and they have a small book of courtesy tickets they can give the child that they can redeem for an ice cream somewhere.
You know, I'm not big, when I was in the legislature, I'm not big on passing laws that were unenforceable. And I actually got 2 people appointed to the State Bicycle Advisory Board, and they were pushing for this. They were school teachers, one in Marshfield, one in Situate, who were active bicyclists. But I also don't like to see government necessarily supplanting the role of parents in legislating common sense. But, you know, this is something I think that was done with an eye towards prompting parents, if you will, to really take the primary responsibility. And I have a hard time reminding my kid, you know, generally he wears a helmet, but I'll see him go out on his Razor scooter or his bike, and he's absent-minded, forgets to turn off lights, forgets to close doors, and he forgets to wear a helmet. So it's really incumbent on me to, you know, make sure he's got it. And, you know, I think it'd be great if a cop saw a bunch of kids and reminded them, but I can't.
I think that
I just can't envision you guys giving tickets out for that.
No, but I see more adherence to the rules. I see more kids wearing helmets. I think that's a parental thing. I know I kind of was raised in the days where there was no bicycle helmets.
If you were going to ticket for that, how does the fine work? Is it some kind of civil infraction, or you're going to summon them? How does that work? I know you and I have had the discussion about littering.
Yes.
And the frustration that police have in enforcing littering. How would the ticketing work? Can you just write a flat-out citation with a fine if you wanted to?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
39 years. Every training session in the history of policing he's been to.
I think I've prioritized that training, and not that helmet wearing is not a high priority, but in the world of delegation of authority, I think that those that are charged with enforcing these helmet laws are very well versed in them. And
I think we better move on to the next question now.
No, I'm not dodging it.
No, I think we should move on to the next question.
There's a process. So this one's traffic day here at
Another one?
Right on Red. So,
This is the easiest show I've had to do.
hello, Mayor Bob and Jim. Sorry, Jim's not here. 1, 2, 3 red light melody. So if the town has many signs on posts and poles that tell you certain hours you may take a right turn, regardless if the light is green or red. They also come in 2 signs, large, and I can't blank them. I'm assuming he means you can't see them, too small. I'm sure that many people are having trouble reading them, good sign or not. I've seen many of these signs across the intersection that the font is so small I can't make it out the hours. They should be on the side of the street, first of all. You can read them, second of all, larger print. Can you have someone in town inspect these signs and adjust or change?
I can answer this one, Chief, because I understand his question perfectly. I think a good example of this is Middle and Lake and Essex would be a good example of what Ed talks about. If you are on Essex crossing Middle to go Lake, you have the no turn on red across the street, large font, and under it you have a very, very small font where you have the limited hours of the right turn on red. You know, it says except 2:30 to 4:30, and I think it's school crossing hours generally where you put those. And I know that the locations are determined by the traffic engineer in conjunction with the school department. So where we have crossings, a normal intersection where a right turn on red is allowed, they are not allowed during school crossing hours in some locations. The problem you encounter is 2 parts that are a problem that I think Ed would probably agree with me on. He's one of our more prolific letter writers too, by the way, questioners. Some people can't make out the font and sit there and don't take the right on red when it's permissible, because all they see is no turn on red and they can't read the small thing. They haven't figured it out yet after, 30 some odd years that we legalized right turn on reds in Massachusetts. Or the problem is, as Ed points out, you can't see the font. And some people might get confused on when you can, or they'll take a right turn on red because they can't see either of the signs. So it's a good prompt for me to talk to DPW about making more visible signage in a couple of locations, because I know what he's talking about.
And I agree, it is difficult. I think people that are well versed in this see the secondary sign and realize it's one that
And they
has
know the hours.
restrictions.
Right.
But that said, and just an important point to remind people on that, if the light is red, you still must come to a complete stop prior. I remember back in my traffic years that the argument would always be you can turn right on red, and people would sail through it under the red light, when you'd have to remind them that they have to come to a complete stop first.
And you can comment if you want, but I know, like, when we have an issue like this, determining what's appropriate for signage, what restrictions have to occur, whether it's an intersection, whether it's parking, it's not the most streamlined process. You have your department gets involved through Sergeant St. Croix. Sergeant Fogarty.
Right.
And we have our traffic engineer, Owen McDonald, and it's a collaborative effort, and there's a process there. And then when you have regulations change, they have to go before the council on some of these types of things, like parking restrictions or crosswalk placement, things like that, believe it or not, have to go through the process with the council. So it's not something that I can just snap my fingers and make happen most of the time. So we'll look at those signs, Ed, and great prompt. I've noticed it, but that'll be the prompt. We need to take another look at some of them.
Very good.
Things do happen here.
Yeah, they do. That's good. Canal Pool. I have loved using the Canal Pool last year and now this year. I've noticed the new signage and some improvements, but the showers need attention. They are awful and need a good cleaning. They have not been cleaned since the takeover and before. The town must own a high-pressure washer or scrub brushes. Take a tour of the women's area.
And some Ajax.
I can't speak for the men's area, but this woman, Jean M., is citing some difficulty. And
Would you like to go on a fact-finding mission on this one, Chief, and go inspect the women's showers?
I will pass on that.
Okay.
Having made it this far in my career without ending up on some controversial
I can
end.
say that I have not been in the women's showers there.
Yes.
I have not been in the men's showers there in a couple of years. When I last had a bunch of kids to swim, public swimming. But I can say that the way that place looks now and the way it looked before I take over is night and day. A great segment, I know it's been running lately, about development update segment about our takeover of the canal rink and pool. Recreation's been great, and with the help of DPW in some instances, in cleaning that place up. It literally is night and day. If you look at all the MDC rinks, I think this is probably one of the best condition now, maintained. But again, I haven't seen the women's shower. I will pass that along to DPW. And it should be and yes, we do own a high pressure washer.
I agree, and kudos to the rink. My time in there at the ice hockey side.
And could I, this is an interesting segue, something I discovered yesterday. Since we segued from parking issues, a number of parking issues, to the canal rink and pool, we have had a problem over there with, let's just say, a reckless disregard, I guess, for parking regulations over there.
That's where I thought that was going, and I thought I escaped it, but
well, no, but we'll put it on the table. And I know I got an update from the police department yesterday that there'd been about 17 parking tickets issued over there in the last week, and things, I guess, and I'm there to take my kid to hockey, so I have seen this firsthand. You know, there's some areas there, it's like borderline gray area where you're going to park, but there's been a kind of a reckless disregard for signage and regulations over there, and I guess the police department got to the point where I think it was probably a public safety issue. I noticed probably about 3 weeks ago myself that someone parked and basically reduced access to the main parking lot down to one lane. And I thought maybe it was someone dropping someone off. I came out of there hour, 15 minutes later, the car was still there. So I know that it's been frustrating for staff over there. And it's frustrating for users who abide by the rules over there. So it seems like we've had a contingent of folks writing that want to see crackdowns. That's an instance where I guess they got one. So
I think what our measure's been back to when it was the MDC jurisdiction as well was public safety and emergency vehicle access. And as you mentioned, sometimes they have some pinch points there that because of the way they're parked, you couldn't get an ambulance up in there, and that's an important place.
I got a question for you. We're going to do a little role reversal here. One of the things I observe when I go over to Stop and Shop, Shaw's, Walmart, one day a guy pulled in, he parked in the fire lane, he left his car running. I observed it. I said, he must be going in for a pack of smokes or quick exchange. And 20 minutes later, I'm down one of the aisles, I have half a full cart, and I see the guy with a full cart. He said, he's in here doing this massive amount of shopping, left his car running in the fire lane. I said, and young guy, healthy guy, probably, in his late 30s. I said, that's just ridiculous. Well, and he was ahead of me in line, perfect timing. And he tried to pay with a check. The check didn't clear, and he left the basket there, and I had to move and go over to another register.
I was going to say, my investigative part that you preluded to in the beginning told me right then and there that he wasn't going to go via the register.
Oh, no, he did. He did. He tried to pay with a check that didn't clear. So my question is, like, how aggressive does WPD in those three examples? Because you do see, like Walmart, it's amazing people don't want to walk 10 feet. They just dump it in the fire lane, or they drop someone off and they sit there. How often do you guys enforce things like that on a private?
I will say that anytime, it's a right to access to parking lots, so we have some jurisdiction in them, and the fire lane is one that we always make note of and clear. When the cruisers go through these complexes, they'll roll up on the fire lane and indicate that the vehicles need to be moved. If they're left there, and we don't see that as often as we do people that live park there and drop somebody off, they're just running in for a few things or something like that. And then we encourage them to move along and make a loop or a lap or something, or find a parking space.
Funny parking story, playing in a men's softball league, we use a facility in Hingham over by the high school, and there's a crosswalk, a lot of kids back and forth to the parking lot to the fields. So I think the Hingham police are cognizant. It's on a kind of a blind turn on Union Street. And they put a no parking situation up over a decade ago on one of the side of Union Street. And you see parents ignore that. And I know Hingham enforces that regularly. And your former colleague over in Hingham told me an interesting story. One of his officers pulled up, and similar to what you do in the fire lane, they said, hey, this is a no parking area, you're going to have to move it, or you're going to get a ticket. And a Hingham housewife in a very expensive SUV said to the officer, oh, how much is the ticket? And he says, it's $50. She goes, oh, I'll take the ticket then. You ever heard one like that?
There's some. I don't know if it's jurisdictional or not, but there's some people that have parked, and if they got a ticket, they were willing to gamble. The likelihood of getting this fine or chance it, but you do see that on occasion. But. Yellow lines on White Street.
Yellow lines on White Street, okay. Did you rig this so it was all traffic-oriented stuff? This is all coincidence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dear Mayor, why does the town continue to paint double lines on White Street, which is a dead end? It creates unnecessary traffic flying down the street thinking there's an outlet at the other end.
I have absolutely no idea.
Well,
Do you have any idea?
I think that it's two subjects here. The lines in the center of the road don't designate whether it's a dead end or not. What they do is they say that there's no passing or it's solid directional.
Right.
You know, inbound, outbound, if you will. What occurs at the end of the street is what signifies that it's a dead end. If it's posted, most dead ends have a sign as you enter the street saying dead end. White Street has an opportunity to get off of White Street if you enter it from Union Street before you get to the dead end.
Right.
So that might be posted elsewhere. I'm not certain if it is, but the yellow lines wouldn't have any bearing on the other end. And if it creates an unnecessary traffic flying down the street, then that's a traffic control.
So here's
speed
my
control issue.
investigative skills at work here. I think what her inference would be is you have a lot of minor roads, residential, quiet streets that might not have any lines down the middle. And that I think she's thinking that the inference there is or creates a perception amongst drivers because it has the double white lines that it's somehow a more major route.
I would
It
go-
might confuse drivers.
My explanation for that solid double line might go back a little bit historically, but often lines are just duplicated when roads are redone or the lines get diminished, so they'll repaint them in their original form. The reason that could have been solid double lined back in the day was that was the main gate into the base.
Right.
And over 3,000 people would enter and exit onto that base every day, civilian
There's an interesting
workers.
history there. There was a couple accidents.
There was one in particular that I recall where there was a fatal accident there which prompted the movement of the base entrance.
There was actually a fatal, which started that, and I think there was a subsequent injury down there that gave it more momentum. But was there a kid killed?
There was,
And the guy, and the Navy guy, took off.
we were denied access to the base.
Oh, what year was that, roughly?
I don't recall.
What year did you start? Were you on the force then?
82, and I
thought it was in the 70s.
that might have been before my time, but I remember the story, but I remember instances of
And they
that.
later got some cooperation, and they did go in and arrest the guy at the barracks.
Yeah, I think there was something along those lines, but with the exception of the air shows, the Weymouth police never went on the base, never.
Well, that's a wrap, Chief. The fastest half hour in television, right? We got to wrap things up. Believe it or not, that was a half hour, and we hardly made a dent in those questions. So you're welcome to come back anytime in the future if you feel you
Mere shadow of
Melody.
melody. Just,
Well, we want to thank Chief Grimes not only for participating today, but for his 39 years of service to the town of Weymouth. He'll be missed, and your successor is off to the FBI Academy on
He
a
is.
special program. There's some news in the paper on that this week, and you've built a great command staff that is going to create a seamless transition. I know that Mayor Menino one time referred to it as a smooth transmission. But this is going to be a smooth transition, and we're going to miss you.
Well, I appreciate your complimentary words and your buying into my ask of you to accept this transitional process. And I kind of had a vision for it and how I thought it would benefit the department and the town. I think it's worked. So far, it's working out perfectly.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on 39 years and a wrap on this show, so don't be a stranger here, sir.
No, sir.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.
Tell me what you wanna do, what you gonna do.